This is the story of the deadliest conflict in human history. 6 years that reshaped the world forever. 6 years, every inhabited continent, the most destructive conflict in human history, began with a single invasion. World War I left its unfinished business. Millions dead, empires collapsed, and new borders drawn across Europe. The Treaty of Versailles blamed Germany, stripped its territory, and capped its army at 100,000 men. Resentment festered as hyperinflation and humiliation left Germans searching for someone to blame. The 1929 crash brought mass unemployment across Europe, and desperation opened the door to extremism. In Italy, Benito Mussolini's fascists seized power after marching on Rome in 1922. Adolf Hitler's Nazi Party rose from a failed coup to legal power in Germany by 1933. The Reichstag fire and the Enabling Act let Hitler crush all opposition and rule as absolute dictator. Germany tore up the Treaty of Versailles, restored conscription, and secretly rebuilt its air force. In 1936, German troops marched into the Rhineland. Britain and France did nothing. The Spanish Civil War became a proving ground for German and Italian weapons and tactics. Japan's military invaded Manchuria in 1931, then launched full-scale war on China by 1937. In March 1938, Germany annexed Austria in the Anschluss without firing a single shot. At Munich, Britain and France let Hitler take Czechoslovakia's Sudetenland, hoping to avoid a wider war. Hitler broke his word and seized the rest of Czechoslovakia in March 1939. Bitter enemies, Germany and the Soviet Union, secretly agreed in a pact to divide Poland between them. September 1, 1939, Germany invaded Poland. Britain and France declared war on Germany on September 3rd. World War II had begun. The Soviet Union invaded Poland from the east. The nation was crushed and partitioned within weeks. Through the winter, an uneasy quiet held on the Western Front, the so-called phony war. In April 1940, Germany invaded Denmark and Norway to secure resources and naval bases. The following month, German forces struck the Netherlands, Belgium and Luxembourg in a lightning campaign. German tanks outflanked French defences through the Ardennes forest, breaking through at Sedan. Trapped at Dunkirk, over 300,000 Allied troops were evacuated across the English Channel. France fell in June 1940. Germany occupied the north, and a Vichy regime ruled the south. Winston Churchill became Prime Minister and vowed that Britain would fight on alone. The Battle of Britain began as the Luftwaffe attacked to clear the skies for invasion. Radar stations and Royal Air Force pilots held the line through the summer of 1940. German bombers turned to British cities in the Blitz, killing tens of thousands of civilians. Hitler postponed the invasion of Britain indefinitely, his first major strategic defeat of the war. Italy entered the war, attacking British forces in North Africa and invading Greece. Germany intervened in the Balkans, conquering Yugoslavia and Greece within weeks in 1941. Across North Africa, General Rommel's Afrika Korps battled British forces back and forth through the desert. On June 22, 1941, Germany launched Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. 3 million Axis troops crossed the border in the largest invasion force ever assembled. Soviet forces reeled backward as millions of soldiers were captured in the war's first weeks. The siege of Leningrad began, a blockade that would starve the city for years to come. Behind the front lines, mobile killing squads began the mass murder of Jewish civilians. Winter arrived, and the German advance stalled just short of Moscow in December 1941. On December 7, 1941, Japan attacked the American fleet at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The surprise attack killed over 2,300 Americans and crippled the Pacific Fleet. The United States declared war on Japan. Germany and Italy then declared war on America. The war was now truly global. Fighting spanned Europe, Africa, the Atlantic, and the Pacific. Japan seized the Philippines, Malaya, and Singapore in a rapid string of conquests. Tens of thousands of American and Filipino prisoners endured the brutal Bataan Death March. At a villa near Berlin, Nazi officials formalized plans for the mass murder of European Jews. Expanded across occupied Poland as deportations accelerated through 1942. The Doolittle raid struck Tokyo directly, a symbolic blow that stunned Japan's leadership. The Battle of the Coral Sea became the first naval battle fought entirely by carrier aircraft. In June 1942, American codebreakers set a decisive trap at the Battle of Midway. 4 Japanese aircraft carriers were sunk within minutes, breaking Japan's naval air power for good. Midway marked the turning point in the Pacific. Japan shifted from offense to defense. American Marines landed on Guadalcanal, beginning a grinding 6-month battle for the island. In North Africa, British forces halted Rommel's advance at the First Battle of El Alamein. In August 1942, German forces pushed into the city of Stalingrad on the Volga. Brutal house-to-house fighting ground on for months amid rubble and freezing cold. In November, Soviet forces launched Operation Uranus, encircling the German 6th Army at Stalingrad. The German 6th Army surrendered at Stalingrad in February 1943. Nearly 2 million people were killed or wounded in the deadliest battle of the war. Operation Torch landed American and British troops in North Africa, squeezing the Axis from the west. Axis forces in North Africa surrendered in May 1943, ending the Desert War. The Battle of the Atlantic raged as convoys battled German U-boats for control of the seas. Allied code-breaking and new tactics finally turned the tide against the submarine threat. In July 1943, the Battle of Kursk became the largest tank battle in history. Soviet forces blunted the German offensive and began a relentless push westward. Allied troops invaded Sicily, then mainland Italy. Mussolini was arrested and fascism collapsed. Italy switched sides, but German troops occupied the peninsula and the fighting dragged on. In the Pacific, American forces began island hopping, seizing key bases while bypassing others. Bloody landings at Tarawa revealed the brutal cost of assaulting fortified Japanese island garrison. Allied bombers pounded German cities and industry in a growing round-the-clock air campaign. At Tehran, Stalin, Roosevelt and Churchill met to plan the invasion of Western Europe. Deportations to death camps continued even as the Allies closed in from east and west. In the east, Soviet forces lifted the siege of Leningrad after nearly 900 days. Planning intensified for the largest amphibious invasion ever attempted, aimed at Normandy, France. On June 6, 1944, D-Day began as Allied forces stormed 5 beaches in Normandy. Over 150,000 troops landed by sea and air in a single day. Fierce fighting held the beachheads. The liberation of Western Europe had finally begun. Allied forces broke out of Normandy and raced across France through the summer. Paris was liberated in August 1944 after 4 years of German occupation. Operation Market Garden, an ambitious airborne assault into the Netherlands, ended in costly failure. On the Eastern Front, Soviet offensives pushed German forces out of Belarus and Poland. Germany launched a last desperate offensive through the Ardennes forest. The Battle of the Bulge stalled the German attack at heavy cost to both sides. Soviet troops advanced into Germany from the east as Allied forces closed from the west. Advancing armies began liberating Nazi concentration and death camps, revealing the full horror. At Auschwitz, Soviet troops found survivors and undeniable evidence of industrialized mass murder. Allied leaders met again at Yalta to plan the post-Puffer Order and the final campaigns. In the Pacific, American forces landed on the volcanic island of Iwo Jima. Weeks of brutal fighting cost thousands of lives before the island was finally secured. American bombers firebombed Tokyo and other Japanese cities, killing over 100,000 people. The Battle of Okinawa began in April 1945, the bloodiest fight in the Pacific. Kamikaze attacks and fierce resistance made Okinawa a grim preview of any invasion of Japan. Soviet forces launched their final assault on Berlin, Hitler's capital, in April 1945. Trapped in an underground bunker, Germany's dictator took his own life on April 30th. Berlin fell to Soviet troops after brutal street fighting through the ruined city center. Germany surrendered unconditionally on May 8, 1945, Victory in Europe Day. The war in Europe was over, but the fight against Japan continued in the Pacific. Okinawa finally fell in June after 82 days, at a staggering cost in lives. Allied leaders met at Potsdam and demanded Japan's unconditional and immediate surrender. In New Mexico, scientists secretly tested the world's first atomic bomb on July 16. Japan's leaders rejected the surrender ultimatum, determined to keep fighting despite mounting losses. On August 6, 1945, an atomic bomb devastated the city of Hiroshima. Tens of thousands died instantly. Tens of thousands more perished from injuries and radiation. 2 days later, the Soviet Union declared war on Japan and invaded Manchuria. On August 9, 1945, a second atomic bomb destroyed the city of Nagasaki. The combined shock of both bombings and the Soviet invasion broke Japan's will to fight. Emperor Hirohito announced Japan's surrender in a radio broadcast on August 15. On September 2, 1945, Japan formally surrendered aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay. After 6 years, the deadliest conflict in human history had finally come to an end. Between 70 and 85 million people died, most of them civilians, not soldiers. The Holocaust alone claimed 6 million Jewish lives in a systematic campaign of genocide. Cities across Europe and Asia lay in ruins, and millions of people were displaced. Surviving Nazi leaders stood trial at Nuremberg, facing charges of crimes against humanity. In Tokyo, Japanese military and political leaders faced similar tribunals for wartime atrocities. The United Nations was founded in 1945 to try to prevent another global catastrophe. Europe split into rival spheres as the wartime alliance with the Soviets quickly unraveled. An iron curtain descended, and the Cold War began, almost as the guns fell silent. New nations emerged from crumbling empires as the post-Pora map was redrawn. The war reshaped science, technology, and borders, leaving scars that outlast every generation. 8 decades later, the lessons of World War II still shape how the world remembers war.